Welcome back to the Everyday Saint podcast with Eve Rosemary. Yesterday, August 20th, was my birthday, and so in honor of that, not that I know anything about life. In fact, sometimes when I see these videos, I kind of cringe a little bit, who are you to think that you have anything to say? But I just love birthdays. And so I thought it'd be really fun to do an episode of lessons from 22 years old that I'm taking with me as I turn 23 years old. Which is kind of wild to say. I've always made the joke that in the Catholic world, when you start approaching the age of 24, you either get married or you die. And there's just so many saints that died at 24. I've literally talked about this with Shelby. I think I brought this up on the podcast before. Saint Therese of Lisieux died at 24. Saint Kateri Tekakwitha died at 24. I think St. Bernadette might have died at 24. There's something about 24, and I'm 23, so it means I got a year to lock in. I just wanted to go over some fun, sister advice, essentially, or sister lessons that I've learned at 22 that I'm bringing with me to 23, because I don't have any younger sisters to actually talk about this with. My brothers don't care that much, so I hope that you guys all enjoy and take some of these little tidbits of advice. We got faith stuff, we got general beauty stuff, we got life stuff, all wrapped into one. So, without further ado, I think the biggest lesson that I've learned this past year is that silence is a better teacher than any podcast could ever be. And what I mean by that is that we spend so much of our life listening to things, filling our minds with things. I mean, that's a constant, but it's so much so that silence in our culture today is not a given. It's actually a skill that we have to practice, which is kind of wild when we think about if we went back to our great grandparents and we're yeah, we're always listening to something, they'd be when do you have time to think? And that's my question. When do you have time to think if you're always listening to something? And so something I've been really practicing this past year is simply just spending time in silence instead of always listening to something, always trying to learn. And I'm someone, I love to learn, but if all I'm doing is taking information and never actually processing it, where's that going to get me? If I'm never going to think about it again, what's even the point of listening in the first place? And I've kind of realized this even in my prayer life, is that sometimes we sit down, we're so ready to get through the to-do list of our prayers that we're not actually spending time in silence. Or even when you read scripture, maybe in adoration or prayer, or you're reading a spiritual book, and then we read through these really profound things that are happening, and we never actually take time to be curious about it. We never take time to sit in silence and actually reflect on it. That's the whole point of Lectio Divina, when they say meditate on scripture. I think you're supposed to read until something hits you, and then to actually sit with that and to think about it and reflect on it. Because if all you do is just read for the sake of reading and getting through something, when are we actually going to think about what we're doing? And so to know that silence is a better teacher than any podcast. I would even think that, I've been watching a lot of Fulton Sheen videos lately because his beatification is coming up, and that's so exciting to me. And I love that we can watch Fulton Sheen's videos. If he's going to be a saint, that means that when we watch videos of Fulton Sheen on YouTube, we are actually looking at someone's face who's currently looking at the face of God. That's so cool. Nonetheless, I would think that any saint or anyone in that position, if you haven't spent time in silence, they would rather you go spend time in silence than listen to what they're going to say. They know that their words aren't going to hit as clearly in your heart as the words that God has for you when you actually spend time in silence. So, silence is a better teacher than any podcast could ever be. This one's just a fun one, but be extra. Okay? Do the extra thing. Take the extra step. Mail the invitation. Instead of just sending, I'm in DC, we do partiful invites all the time. Really helpful. But what if you actually made your invitation and sent it out? What if instead of just going out to dinner, you made dinner and invited people into your home? What if instead of just sending a birthday text, you actually mailed the birthday card? I mean, these little things, did that really take that much of your time to do all the time? No. But I think be extra. Actually appreciate what life has to offer versus always taking the easy way out. I even think this With this was another piece of advice that I'm tagging onto this one. The espresso machine is so worth it. Get the espresso machine. Why? Because it takes an extra couple minutes rather than just putting in the K-cup and pouring it, and it tastes better too. So much of our life, we just take the easy way out, and sure, that works fine for some things, but what if we made life a little bit more beautiful? What if we, this actually was a big trend this summer, being more whimsical, right? And not necessarily I don't think you have to be more whimsy, maybe, but maybe instead, you just take a couple extra minutes to think about what's an extra thing that you can do for someone. What's an extra thing that you can do in your day just simply to appreciate the fact that God has given you this day. And you can do something good with it. The next piece of advice is that this past year was a huge year for me. I mean, if you've been following along, it's been post-grad life, moving to the DC area, starting my speaking career, which is a career where you have no job security at all. I work for myself. And if I don't get booked to speak, you don't make money, right? There's no job security with that. So it's a huge leap of faith to fresh graduate from college and do ministry full time, basically is what I'm saying. And in that, right, and in that moment of having to really trust in God and these huge life transitions, it makes you really question who you are and if you're doing God's will for your life. And so something I've learned this year, and something I took a lot of comfort in when trying to figure out what God wanted me to do with my life, is that if you are in a state of grace, you are doing God's will. It's that simple. It is that simple. If you are living in a state of grace, if you are avoiding sin, you are living in God's will. Because if the adverse is true, right, if you are living in sin, that means that you are not doing God's will. Why is that true? Because we know sin, it darkens the intellect, it weakens the will. And so if we are living in a state of sin, a mortal sin, serious sin, habitual sin, we are not doing God's will. Because ultimately, God's will is heaven for us, and heaven is a place without sin. So if we are getting so overwhelmed by, does God want me to make this decision, to do that, to go this place, to move here? Yes, those answers need to be sought out, but maybe in those moments where we're feeling so overwhelmed by those decisions, to take comfort in the fact, am I working towards heaven? Am I working towards God's will in the day-to-day of avoiding the sin, of paying attention to the ways that I can love other people better, the ways that I can love God better, actually asking God, how can I love you better today? And I think that sometimes that's all we need, right? Go to confession, start over. The power of a good confession, let me tell you. There's been a couple times where it's I've been so moody, in such a bad state of mind, just in this funk. I go to confession, problem solved. It's as if God's grace is amazing or something, right? That can change your life if you allow it to. So go to confession. Know that if you are actively pursuing being in a state of grace, you are already doing God's will for your life. Next piece of advice, literally just have fun. Just have fun. I don't know why this was such a big lesson for me, but I feel somewhere along the way I don't know if I was just confused with life, just taking life too seriously, I lost the fact of being fun. In fact, I had a friend in college once. We were all trying to hang out, and I was choosing my outfit, and I came out in something. I was does this look right? And they were well, it looks a little business. And I just in this conversation kind of realized that I just always looked business casual. What is that? Why do I give off those vibes? And there's something to being professional and always dressing your best, but there's just also something to being so free in who you are that you have the capacity to have fun. In fact, I think that Mary and Jesus would have been the most fun people to be around. Why do I think that? Because they were, one, humble enough to take the joke, to make the joke, because I think to be funny, you have to take a little bit of a risk in yourself. You have to be comfortable in who you are to make a joke. And then, two, they just would have been so joyful, so full of God's presence. I mean, we have sometimes this perspective on the faith of always being so serious, especially in the Catholic faith, right? We just take things Seriously. Memento mori, am I right? Like, what if we just kind of allowed ourselves to participate in the joy of Christ, in the joy of like life, of just being funny, of making the joke, of, being, taking the risk and doing that and being humble enough to receive jokes, to give jokes. I just think they would have been the most fun people to be around, just like there to have a good time. So have a good time. Just have fun. Life is not that serious. Like, okay, for example, par ejemplo. Say you are at work and you kind of have run out of things to do at work. You could scroll on your phone until you find something to do. Or you could go around and ask fun questions to your coworkers who maybe also have run out of work to do. Or, like do something like fun like that, like actually appreciate the person in front of you. Find something fun to do, or go make a coffee or something. Just find like little moments of your day that you can make more fun. Taking a break from the episode because your saint story is written in the moments of everyday life. If you are looking for a meaningful way to make an impact after graduation or during a year of mission, Seton Teaching Fellows is a paid one-year missionary teaching opportunity to love and teach students in one of America's most underserved communities. Fellows live, teach, and catechize at their placements in either the Bronx, New York, Cincinnati, Ohio, or South Texas. They spend their days forming student disciples, gaining deeper spiritual and professional formation for themselves, all while living in an intentional Catholic community with free housing, and they don't fundraise. So if you're looking to grow in faith, serve with purpose, and make a lasting impact, visit fellows.setonpartners.com/saint or follow Seton Teaching Fellows on Instagram at Seton Teaching Fellows. The link is also in the description below. So often when I'm figuring out what I want to read next, I really struggle finding a piece of fiction that also aligns with my values. With Jacqueline Brown's books, I never have to worry about that. Jacqueline Brown is a Christian author who makes her fiction reflect her values. So these teach you lessons on courage, faith, spiritual warfare, which really is helpful because you get to read something that you genuinely enjoy reading, a piece of fiction, while also taking lessons to bring into your daily life. So if you're looking for your next book, you have a couple series to choose from. You can start with The Light if you love post-apocalyptic fiction. You can start with The Awakening if you love spiritual warfare and mystery, or you can start with the Altered series if you want a thought-provoking new series. So if you want clean, faith-filled, binge-worthy books to read, you can visit JacquelineBrown.com. The link is also in the description below. Back to the episode. This one's a fun one, but honestly, having your nails done is a game changer. Having your nails done does just make life better. Look at, okay, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, I just got my nails done yesterday, obviously, for my birthday. I'm hosting a party this weekend. I'm calling it Girls, Gingham, and Grill Out. Again, this goes back to me being extra of hosting a party for my birthday and also 1-year anniversary in Washington, D.C. So as such, I'm inviting all the girls that I've met this year. I've asked them all to wear the gingham pattern because I think that's so cute and so summer, and I've been obsessed with gingham this summer. That's why I'm explaining that, is also because there's a little gingham on my nail. It's so cute. I really like it. I just feel fun. And I don't get my nails actually done that often. So I used to. When I first moved to DC, I was like, I'm going to be one of those girls that gets my nails done all the time. They always look good. And I was getting gel polish. But then one day I was literally walking around my house. And as I was walking around my house, my nail, my nail literally just broke in the pink part. I wasn't even using my hands. It had the polish on and it just broke in the middle of my finger, basically. And I was like, first of all, ow. Second of all, my nails were so weak from getting gel done all the time that they were just breaking on their own and so flimsy. And I was like, well, I can't do that. We need to find a better solution for this. And so thus began my press-on nail journey. Now, if you've been following, you know I'm on the press-on nail trend. This is the process. If you haven't heard this before, this is what I do. And I get these press-ons to last legitimately 2 or 3 weeks, with maybe having 1 or 2 of them kind of fall off. But for the most part, they stay on. And it's also not that my nails are totally great from those either, but they're better than they were when I was doing gel polish, and they're also way cheaper. So what you do, first of all, you buff your own nail. Then you take a nail dehydrator, which sounds kind of strange. nail dehydrator is literally just like another polish. I use the Modella brand. It's on Amazon. I think it's in my storefront. It has a little like bee on it, if you know the brand, or if you see it. So I use the nail dehydrator. I don't really know what that does, but it helps. And then I use a nail primer from the same brand, this Modella brand, a nail primer. Then I buff down, or just like quick buff the nails that I'm going to put on, like the fake nails that I'm going to put on my hand. Then after that, I get the Nail Reformation brand from TJ Maxx. They're like $10 a piece. You can also reuse them. I don't know if that glue is better. I don't know if it just fits my nail better. I think that's really the key, is just finding a brand that fits your nail really well. Because if it doesn't fit your nail really well, it's going to snag. It's going to make it so it doesn't stay as well. So I like the Nail Reformation brand. And so I use those, and I use the glue, and I put them on. And it takes me like, that process sounds really long. It probably now takes me all of like 20 minutes or so to do. 20 minutes or so, twice a month, probably in total, if they last about 2 weeks. And honestly, it just feels like it makes my life better. I can feel my, like when I type, my nails, they if you can hear that, they tap. And I like that. They also feel stronger. I also cook a lot, and so sometimes there's been times where I've like almost chopped a finger off, but the fake nail protected my finger. So do with that information what you will. But having your nails done just makes you feel so much more put together. It also looks nice. I also like the press-ons because they don't chip. So that's also a problem that I would have with nails, just like regular nail polishes, that they chip and then you don't always have time to fix it. Or it's just annoying to try and fix because then you have to redo it all. You know. If you know, you know. So just having your nails done is a fun way to do it. Something else I've learned this year, airplanes make great places to pray. Great places to pray. Why? I don't really know. If it's like just looking out the window, it's great for a rosary. You're kind of stuck there anyways. I think so often we're like focused on having the right place to pray. And I think something airplanes has taught me is that they're just great places to pray. You can pray literally anywhere. Also, most likely you're on a plane, no one's going to talk to you. Let's be so for real. We don't talk to each other on planes. And if you start talking to someone on a plane, it's kind of like, oh, this is a little weird. And I have nowhere to go. So usually we just don't start talking because we have nowhere to go if the conversation goes south. So no one's going to bother you. So it's a great place to just kind of sit and pray and to think and to wonder for a little while. Another piece of more faith-based advice is don't come to God only looking for answers. So often, right, we come to prayer and we're like, I have to figure this out. I have to figure that out. I don't know what to do about this. And we just come to God asking Him for things and asking for Him to reveal parts of our life back to us. And there was a moment in prayer this year that really stuck with me for like the entire year. I was sitting in adoration, trying to figure out something about my life, probably everything about my life. And my mind was just like whirling with things. And I kind of heard this little voice in the back of my head just say like, do you only come to me when you need answers? I was like, oh shoot. Like I kind of was doing that to God. Like I wasn't there just to spend time with Him, but because I felt like because I was spending time with Him, then I would know the answer. And sure, maybe then you are able to figure out what God wants you to do, obviously, if you're spending that time in prayer. But that's not the only reason why we pray. We don't pray the novena just for the answer. Like, the end of any prayer needs to be God itself. To know that any answer that we have always ends in God. Like the question of the human heart. The only answer that is fitting is that which ends in God. And so if you only come to God searching for answers, you're missing out on the relationship that you have with Him. And I even think this, like, you know, if God gave you then all the answers, would you stop coming to Him? Like, that's what it made me wonder. Like, if God gave me these answers, would I stop praying? Because I would know everything. I would know everything that I needed to know. And, like, of course we don't know all the answers. Of course we don't know everything. We're not even in control of it in the first place. And half the time, the opportunities that come up, we wouldn't have even thought of ourselves. Like, we would have never come up with that opportunity in the first place to be like, wow, that was actually a great opportunity. And I never would have dreamed that I would have had something like that. And, you know, God knows so much better. But also, like, our life is not the summation of the answers that we receive, the answers to our vocation, the answers of what we're supposed to do with our career, the answers of where we're supposed to move to. Like, that is not the summation of our life. Like, so much of it is more about the everyday in-between moments rather than just the big answers. And even if we look at the lives of the saints, I thought about this a lot specifically with Pier Giorgio Frassati and Blessed, now St. Carlo Acutis, who both got canonized this year. Both of those people passed away before they had the answer to their vocation. Carlo passed away before he had the answer to even what he was supposed to really do with his life long term. And yet he was living for God every single day of his life. That can teach us so much about our lives too, that we don't need the answer to our vocation. We don't need the answer to our career to currently be living the life that will make us a saint. They died before they knew the answers to those things. So don't come to God only looking for answers, because the Lord He has so much more in store for you than just being someone who gives you what you want. In fact, okay, this blew my mind yesterday. I was thinking about this. I've been reading, I'll show it to you. Remade for Happiness by Venerable, Almost Blessed Fulton Sheen. And something that he says in here, I wonder if I can find it. This chapter is called What is God Like? It's literally page 21 of this book. Okay, I haven't made it far in this book, but it's blown my mind. I was sitting at a cafe reading it yesterday, and I was like, oh, this is really good. This is just a good book. Just blowing my mind. And so, what he says, when the prodigal son left the father's house, he said, "Give me." He judged his father's goodness by the way the father satisfied what he wants. But when he returned a much wiser young man, he merely asked for what he needed, a restoration of a father's love, and hence he said, "Make me." So instead of saying, "Give me," he was saying, "Make me into who you need me to be." And that's the way that we need to come to God, not just asking him for what we want, but knowing that God is going to give us actually what we need. And that requires formation. That requires us to be a little bit uncomfortable. That requires us to actually have to learn how to rely on him, how to trust in him, how to be there with God in every single thing that we do, and not just in suffering, right? Because God is not just going to break your heart so that you're closer to him, right? We even see that with the prodigal son. He goes through all of this trauma and difficulty and suffering, and then comes back to the Father and is a much wiser person because of it. And yes, that is true, that suffering makes us so aware of God's proximity to us, and suffering makes us so aware of who we need to become and where God is in our life. But to really come to God, just knowing that he's going to give you what you need. Not always what you want, but what you need. And that can be a tough lesson to learn sometimes, right? Because it's almost scary to do too. And that I didn't quite write this down as a piece of advice, but it's been one of the biggest lessons that I've been learning lately is, just that God doesn't delight in our suffering, and he uses it for his good and for our good, but God does not delight in that. Rather, I think that there's just a genuine need to learn how to trust in him in the good and the bad things, and not just to notice him when you need something. I think maybe that's part of a lesson of God's providence, is to not even want, because you know that God will already give you what you need, and so you don't even have to worry about it. That's genuine trust in God, is that I actually don't need to worry about these things, because I know that God is going to provide, and that he's a good father, that he will give me genuinely what I need for the journey, and I'm going to be happy because of it. Not just happy because I'm telling myself that I have to be happy because that's what holy people do, but happy because I'm with God, and I'm currently actively living in his will, and I'm doing what's going to make me a saint. And the saints were so joyful, right? We look at these, when you know someone who's so holy, they emanate this beauty within them that is indescribable, that makes you feel seen, known, and loved. And because you know that they feel seen, known, and loved by God, that is the promise of God, right? That we are seen, we are known, and that we are loved. And so if that's true, what do we have to stress about? Why do we have to worry about give me this, give me that? Instead of just going before God and being make me into who I was created to be, because that's going to be what brings me the greatest fulfillment. If the Lord made our hearts to love him, they're going to be the happiest when they are doing that, because that love is a mirror of the love of God, which we know to be so encapsulating and captivating. And so, we're very blessed by that. I think that's pretty much all the pieces of advice. I mean, I had like little other bits and pieces written down, but I think that just about covers it for this year of 22. 23 seems so much older than 22, and I don't know if I'm just saying that because I just got older. I don't really know. But I feel like 23 sounds way older than 22. Crazy. Okay. Thank you so much for listening today. It's been a blessing to talk with you and share this life with you. If you want to keep following along with the Everyday Saint, you don't already follow on Instagram, it's the Eve Rosemary. On Instagram, you can follow along there. You can also check out my website, www.theeverydaysaint.com, which is where you'll find blog, links to all the podcast, YouTube, everything like that. But also, you can inquire to have me speak at your school, parish, your college campus. I speak to all age groups, middle school and high school, primarily about chastity, and then kind of like a dating 101 and how to live a moral life for college students. So I'll be at Michigan Tech very soon and a couple other parishes across the United States. So if you're interested in having me come in and speak to your group of students, I would love to be put in touch with them. So you can, again, check that out at www.theeverydaysaint.com. Thank you so much for listening, and God bless you.